Good morning and welcome to our Wednesday edition of our Anchored in the Word morning reflection. Hope that you've had a good start to your week. And we're here in the middle of the week and digging into this passage of Scripture that I hope has been a great blessing to you. Let's go ahead and turn our Bibles again to Psalm 46. We're going to read through the text, and then we're going to look at the purposes that God has for His people, specifically talked about in the text in front of us. And I want us to see how what God has purposed to do, He will do. Nothing can stop that. Psalm 46 verse 1 says the following: God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Though the waters thereof roar and are troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, Selah. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. God shall help her in that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he has made in the earth. He makes wars to cease unto the ends of the earth. He breaks the bows and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burns the chariots in the fire. Be still, know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. So we dig into this passage. We've looked at several different pieces to it. We've looked especially at the presence of God. This morning we're going to look at the purposes of God and how God is going to accomplish his purposes. To put it very simply, his purposes will not be overthrown. Now, I didn't say that they won't be resisted. I didn't say that there won't be seasons where you wonder, in fact, will he follow through? Can he follow through? How will he do this in this set of circumstances? But God is a consistent God. His promises are sure. He's faithful to his word. And this is demonstrated and even talked about in the text in front of us. So let's dig into it a little bit here. Verse 6 says, God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. Now the following section works at the distant future. This would be eschatological, is the word we'd use, to the not so distant past. So as the writer is referring to what's going on, he's going to look ahead at something in the long-term future of Israel. Then he's going to look back at what God has done, and he looks currently at what he is doing. This would be the vantage point of the person that's writing the psalm. So we know that he's talking about Jerusalem's future because of the following statement. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place, the tabernacle of the Most High. Now this leads me to a question. If you know anything about Jerusalem and geography and the history of Israel, you're going to ask this question. Has there ever been a river in the middle of Jerusalem? The answer to that question is no. There has never been a river flowing through the city of Jerusalem. In fact, if we look back at the history, the Jebusites who were there before David made it the capital of Judea, the Jebusites inhabited Jerusalem, and they settled there because there was access to water. In fact, there were springs called the Gihon Springs that seasonally fed into the Kidron Valley, so there would be streams that would flow through the valley, but Jerusalem was not in the valley. Jerusalem was up on the mountainside, the hillside. It's called Mount Zion. So if you were to go out of the city and down into the valley, that's where you would find the water. During the time of Hezekiah, there was an attempt to harden the city against a siege that was going on from the Assyrians. And so Hezekiah was concerned that the people had to go out of the city to get water. And so he devised a way that they could divert the water from the Gihon Springs instead of going down into the Kidron Valley where the people would have to go to collect the water. They would actually divert the springs so that the water would flow into the city. And so he built this massive waterway underground. As he built these water systems, it diverted the water from the springs down to a lower part of the city, still obviously above the Kidron Valley, that was within the walls, and that location was what is currently the Pool of Siloam. During the time of Christ, it was the Pool of Siloam. And so this is where people could go and get water. But this was not a natural water source being fed to this where there is a river. We're not talking about that. We're talking about underwater aqueducts that are moving, underground aqueducts that are moving the water from the Gihon Springs to this pool of Siloam. And so the question is, what's he talking about? When has or will there be a time in Israel's history where Jerusalem will have a river flowing through it? And the answer is, this is eschatological. In fact, if we read the book of Ezekiel, chapter 47, it predicts a time during the kingdom era, the millennial reign is what it's often referred to, when God will do this and there will be a river flowing through Jerusalem. It says, afterward he brought me again to the door of the house, and behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward. These waters issued out toward the east country, down into the desert, to go into the sea, which is being brought forth into the sea. The waters shall be healed, and it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth whatsoever, whithersoever the river shall come, shall live. There shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters shall come thither, for they shall be healed, and everything shall live whither the river cometh. Now, what he's talking about is a time where from the temple and from the throne where God is going to rest, there'll be water flowing out through the city and down through the eastern gate into the Kidron Valley, and down from the Kidron Valley, ultimately down to what is currently called the Dead Sea. Now, this has never been the case in Israel's history. It will be in the future. We also see him talking about this in another passage of Scripture, and that is referring to the New Jerusalem in Revelation 22. And this is our eternal home. When we talk about heaven, we're talking about the New Jerusalem. It says, he showed me a pure river of water, the water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out from the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was a tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. The leaves of the trees were for the healing of the nations, and there shall be no more curse. But the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. What is he talking about? He's emphasizing the future hope of the people. And this future hope rests on the promise of God and his zeal to perform his word. You say, well, why was this significant for the people when this would have been written and compiled? Well, interesting point is that when we look at the Psalms are actually 5 different books, 5 volumes. And Psalm 46 falls in the second volume, which corresponds with the Exodus and then God's deliverance. And so when we look at the beginning of the books, Psalm 42, and then we look at the end of the psalm, we see, first of all, a person who is thirsty and hungering for God, and by the end we see the triumph of God's deliverance. This corresponds with the theme that we find in Psalm 46. And this would have been compiled at a time when the people were coming back from the exile, and they were experiencing, we could say, the disillusionment of having been a defeated people, but also the prospect of God having preserved them as a people and still having a purpose for them. We also believe that it was probably written during the time of Hezekiah, which would correspond to a story we're going to look at not today, but Lord willing, tomorrow. Very significant in the history of Israel. And so what we see ultimately is Jerusalem is experiencing from the past to the future God's hand of preservation. God is in the midst of her. She will not be moved. He is her help, and that right early. In the present, he's saying God is in the midst of her. In the future, he says, she shall not be moved because God shall be her help. God's promises were tested all throughout this time, from the past and the present to the future. And what has been demonstrated over and over and over again, what God says, he does. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved, he uttered his voice, the earth melted, the Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. That is a wonderful thing for us to conclude on this morning. May God help us to remember that not only is he with us in some of our greatest struggles, but what he has purposed to do, he will accomplish, and nothing can stop it. May God give us this great comfort this morning. Have a blessed rest of your day, and Lord willing, we'll meet again tomorrow. Bye now.